This is your spiritual connection, ourplanetlife.org, broadcasting from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. Welcome to DFW Business Hour on ourplanetlife.org. It's an outreach program of Webb Chapel Church of Christ. I'm Art Garcia, your host, and we thank you for joining us. We'd like to send a special shout out to the Farmers Branch Chamber of Commerce. Its members and its staff, thank you so much. And speaking of Farmers Branch, today we have the Honorable Mayor Bill Glancy. Mayor Bill Glancy, welcome to DFW Business Hour.
Well, thank you, Mark. It's certainly a pleasure to be here today.
We thank you for dropping by yesterday to our ribbon cutting ceremony at DFW Business Hour.
Oh, well, that was great. We had a nice turnout, and I think it gives an exposure of what you folks are doing for our community, and hopefully there'll be great benefits as a result of that.
Hopefully we can grow with more listeners down the road.
Well, I think that the media that you folks are using has become the in thing to be doing. I think people today certainly are more in tune to a lot of the media, electronic media and things of that nature that make them more aware of what's going on in our community and our country as in general. And I think all those things are good things. Yes, I do agree.
Mayor Glancy, how long have you been mayor of Farmers Branch?
I've been mayor going on about 16 months now, which is approaching about half the term. City council and mayor terms in the Farmers Branch are all 3 years at the present time.
Great. I have another question for you. Inquiry minds want to know, what is it that you like about being mayor, and what are the duties of a mayor of a city?
Okay. Well, the things I like, I've always certainly had a love for our city and tried to participate in all the activities of our city. I laughingly said, between my wife and I, the years that we've lived here, I think we've been involved in boards and various things for over 50 years between the two of us. Yeah. And so we've always had a great love for our city and an interest in trying to move it forward. And I think as mayor, you do have an opportunity to try to talk with people and become aware of what goals and desires folks have, and hopefully try to implement some of those things in the process. I think from government is always frustrating from the standpoint nothing ever happens as fast as you'd like to see it happen, but you try to get some of the momentum started on certain issues or certain projects and things like that and see it mature over time. So those are all issues that do it. As far as the duties, we are a council city manager form of government. City manager operates the city. He is the only employee of the city council, other than we also appoint the municipal judge. But basically, and I run the council meetings. I do not participate normally in the voting process unless one of the council members isn't there, and if there's a tie on a vote, then the mayor casts the vote as a tiebreaker. I do conduct the meetings, also any type of emergencies or things like that. I'm the person that would declare emergencies or any type of action need to be taken. And basically then from there on, the mayor is kind of the ceremonial head of the city. Yeah. I'm kind of the person that's out there meeting the people, talking, going to different organizations and things like that. Fortunately, I'm able to do that because I've retired, and I've always felt like to be an effective mayor, it's almost a full-time job because there's lots of times and issues that are put before you that you need to help and address and meet with different people and things like that. So that's kind of in a nutshell the process and what my jobs are as mayor.
I see. What are some of your concerns for the city of Farmers Branch?
Well, I think one of the things that I campaign on and talking with people in campaign processes, we wanted to get back to having more economic development going on, revitalizing our city. We're an aging community in a residential sense, so that we need to revitalize a lot of our residential property, and we had a lot of vacancies going on in our commercial real estate that had happened over the years. a lot of this area was developed back in the 70s and 80s, and a lot of it was warehousing type things when we had American manufacturers who manufactured products and shipped them into distribution areas. And that Farmers Branch is one of those big areas of distribution. Well, a lot of that business has changed, obviously, since a lot of products come from offshore today and are not warehoused locally like they were back when we had American manufacturers. And so we're looking at evolution of what the new types of businesses to come in and take over those things. And we're starting to see some really nice new types of business coming into our community and taking up the void of those buildings. And I think that's always encouraging. That helps the tax base. Government is pretty much like your own personal finances, in dealing with the balancing your expenses. You can either make more money or or spend less money, and we try to do both, but we try to bring in more taxes to help defray additional costs, because you always have increasing costs and with inflation and different things, services that people want you to provide them all have a cost related with them. So if you aren't bringing in more revenue to take care of that, it puts you in a deficit situation, and I personally don't like to raise taxes
nobody does.
to do that. So we try to do it by bringing in more ad valorem value to offset those things.
Also, what are some of the areas that need to be addressed in Farmers Branch, do you think?
Well, as we kind of touched on before, a lot of the revitalization of our housing stock. Farmers Branch was one of those communities that really almost developed in a period of about 10 to 20 years. It's a first ring suburban area of Dallas, and people came in here back in the late 60s and 70s and early 80s and moved into this area, and the population exploded at that time, and a lot of the housing was built in that era. And as time goes on, that housing stock, if it's not maintained and taken care of, it will start to deteriorate. And the other bad thing that happened back in that era is that was the era when we just started having concrete foundations work, and a lot of the earlier foundations weren't done as well as they have do today, and so houses had to be maintained. If they weren't maintained, then you ended up with houses where the structure is basically lost, and plumbing and things like that. If they took care of them, maintained them, they're fine. But we have a lot of those, and so what's happening is we are in city programs where we have the city's actually going in certain areas and bought some houses and scraped them off if they're dangerous structures and things like that, and then we usually sell them at some discounted figure to a prospective homeowner, and with the idea that they have to build a home on it and certain values and things like that, and that's worked very well. The city has done this over the last number of years, and it's progressed very well. It's not the only answer to doing it. A lot of those houses that are like that are more larger homes that's being done because people come in and buy a lot that once you scrape it off, it's still fairly expensive, and then they'll build maybe a 3,000 square foot house or something like that on it. But I think I've preached for a long time, I think there's a need in our community for smaller housing.
Yes.
We have, the one thing about our city is when people move here, they soon engage in the services and all the things that's provided to them in this city. Response time of the police, fire department, all this amenities, senior activities, various things that we do. Well, people stay here. I have many, many residents in this community that's lived here for 40 and 50 years. They have no intention of going anywhere else. This is their home, and they love the city, and they very much want to stay here. But yet, they're sitting in a house that they had bought back when they had a large family with children and all those things, and now they don't have the need for maybe 2,500 or 3,000 square feet or whatever, and they would like to get into something smaller. And so we're trying to combine some of these things where we have areas where we need a revitalization to get people to build things that are smaller for them. We have some plans where we're talking about building some senior housing where it's progressive senior facilities, where it's a traditional thing where you go from independent living to assisted living, nursing care, and memory center, all those things, and some of those are combined and inclusive in one unit. But then there's a lot of folks that just say, I want all the things I have now just in a smaller version.
Yeah.
And so
less maintenance.
Less maintenance. They're looking at 1,000, 1,200 square feet flat on one level with a garage attached to it. And so when you start figuring out, and how do you do that on the lots that are built for bigger houses, and some of it is we're looking at the idea of maybe taking some lots in some areas where you could buy 2 or 3 of them and put more houses on them, put them in a smaller configuration. I like the idea of building a quality small home, not just a very utilitarian version of it. And a lot of these where you can cluster them together, then they may end up with a condo association or some dupe that does the maintenance for them, keeps the maintenance and the quality level of the property up, and yet provides them with a much smaller home where they can keep, have and take care of and maintain much easier than what they do with twice or 3 times the size of what they have now. One of the things I found with it when talking about that, people want storage. It's easy for lots of times for seniors to go from 2,500 to 1,000 square feet, but they have a lot of things they don't want to get rid of.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to figure out how to build storage areas with these things where they can maintain and keep it, maybe in an attic area or something like that, where they don't necessarily want to touch it every day, but they don't want to get rid of it either. So, and a lot of your memories are there. I mean, with pictures and various things that you've collected over your lifetime that have a lot of meaning to you, it's very difficult to give up all those things. And so we're trying to address those things too with their housing. And so we've been talking with another, in fact, one of the groups that we're talking with and been involved with quite a bit is the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. They have an interest in this area, and we've been working on trying to develop some small housing that those folks would be involved in. And I think it's a market. I think also, Mark, there's a market. We're kind of talking here mainly about seniors, but there's a market out there for young people today. They come into the market. A lot of them today are renting and apartments. We have about 2,300 new upscale apartments being proposed based around the perimeter of our city. And those are young folks, and they all tell me these are young professional people that are starting out, maybe second, third rent house, have nice jobs, paying off their college debt. And they've kind of gone into the apartment thing based on a couple of factors. One, the lending market hasn't been most attractive to them, and then the other thing is housing hasn't been a great investment in the past when you were having decreasing values. I think that's stabilizing now, and will probably come back. In the history of this country, normally residence and real estate property has been a good investment, and I think it's going to do that in the long term. So a lot of them are starting to think about in terms maybe if they're going to stay here on a permanent basis, they have a job that looks like it's going to be maintained in the area or stay in this area, they may want to be buying into these things, and a lot of them would like to buy smaller homes. They're not having as big of families as we are, and their lifestyles are changing a lot from what we were known as a traditional lifestyle. So we're seeing that kind of a thing come about too, and I think as we provide housing for those folks, that'll be something that'll be desirable. I'm pushing the staff right now to reach out more to our apartment owners. For traditionally, they've just apartment folks have just kind of been left alone. Most of them don't get a water bill. Half of them don't even know what city they live in because they deal with a landlord and pay the rent and all those things, and utilities are provided. And so I'm talking with our staff about trying to have some social events in some of these larger apartment complexes where we start going out and talking to them, talking about the amenities of the city, things that are available to them, and get them involved in the process. I think the young people, that's our future, obviously, is the young folks, and how do we get in touch with them and get them involved. And you know, when you talk about the great recreation facilities and things we have, and rec centers and all that in the city, most of them are unaware of that. And so if it's not on their path to go to work or go to some retailer, they don't even know where it's here. So as we get them, try to get them more involved. And then I think those become your future detached residential home buyers and people like that if they're here. You know, for years I used to talk to people who moved into the city and say, you know, where'd you come from? What rent you? Well, we went into an apartment right over here, and we always liked the area, so we just kind of stayed here. And I think that's a great incentive for them to stay here if we start getting them involved in the community and know that. You know, we may fail. I mean, we do things and don't always have success, but you don't know if you don't unless you try, and you try to learn from these things and what gets them involved and gets them involved in the community. And we need that next generation to come along and pick up the reins and do the leadership things. You know, we're all old and retired, and so we need to get those young folks involved in the community and keep it going forward.
Mayor Glancy, on another note, are there classes for ESL and the U.S. Citizenship? Does the City of Farmers Branch offer any type of classes?
We do, and of course, you've always heard the city's issues going on with illegal immigration, and it's gotten a lot of national publicity and local publicity and all that. And of course, what you don't hear is that we have for years offered classes in citizenship and also classes in English, and it's been done at our library. We do them every week. There's a class on English, and it's taught at the Mansky Library. They start at 7 p.m. and go till 8:30. They do it on Monday and Thursday night. We normally have in a range of 450 to 500 people a month attend those classes. They're very good. It's all taught by volunteers, and we'd love to have anyone who's interested in your audience to help participate in that. It's always welcome. It's a great experience. I've been down there a number of times, and that relationship between student and teacher is one of those things that you really value, and you just see the gratitude that's going on there, and the people. And we have people from all over the world in those classes. And you don't have to know another language. Some of them don't know anything but English. It's better if you have more than one language, just because we do. We have people from Pacific Rim, South America, all over the world in there. And so that's one thing, and there's no restrictions on it. There's no cost from the standpoint of the participants, and we take anybody that comes in that wants to learn English is the only criteria that we know. And then once we get them to a point where they have a reasonable management of the language, then we try to encourage them to go on and go through the citizenship class. And we've had people from Customs Immigration come out and help explain this process to them. I think there's a lot of misinformation and out there about the citizenship process. And so we've tried to make that simple and understand it, and we have a lady that runs classes in that. Again, it's done free. I think it takes about 10 sessions to her going through that process. She gives them materials, and the process itself, which has nothing to do with us, but I think with the federal government, the background fee process and all those things runs them about $700 to get through the process. And I even have some philanthropic organizations in the community that have come out and come forward and said, you know, if they need some help with some of that cost, they would be willing to help them with that. So I hope no one doesn't do it because of the cost factor, because I think there are some means. I think they should pay something for it. I think you always have more value for something when you put some of your own money into the thing. But there is help out there for them. To me, that's a logical step. You know, Mark, we had about 1.2 million green cards issued in this country last year for people to be here illegally, and to me, I think we need to get them on through the citizenship. You know, there's things about the citizenship process that I don't don't necessarily agree with,
Yeah.
and I like to see them changed. And I try to preach that. And I think the experience that we can have here gives us more ammunition to go to the government and say these processes need to be changed. For instance, right now, you need to have green card status in this country for 5 years before you can apply for citizenship, unless you're a spouse of an American citizen, which is in 3 years. Well, I don't see the necessity to that. I think that you're separating people from their families or putting them in a situation where they have to survive here as a legal immigrant for 5 years before they go through the citizenship process. And I think that the incentive is kind of diminished. And to me, if they're of good standing and come into this country and want to be, I think they should a much sooner process of being able to get them started through the citizenship process. Then if they're here, they become citizens, then they can bring in their wife or mother or father or something like that legally and through that process. Conversely, I'm not sure that we should keep offering green cards continually, and that again destroys the incentive to become a citizen. And as I go to those classes and usually give them a little introduction talk when they start, and I think their economic opportunities and all the things are so much greater if they will go through the citizenship process. At that point, they're safe. You don't know what can happen. If you get into some kind of issue, you can always have a legal immigration status pulled from you, but as a citizen, that's not possible to happen. And I think they're much more secure in that, and the pride of citizenship. And the one thing about this country is, we allow dual citizenship. They don't have to give up citizenship in their country of origin. Yeah. And so I don't see a downside. I see nothing but positives that's available to them as citizens. And so we certainly encourage them people of all people to go through the citizenship process. We're all a minority here. Yeah. I mean, there's no majority people of ancestry in this country. We all come from different parts of the world. And so I think once they learn English and become citizens and start assimilating into society here, then their opportunities and a lot of the problems that's been created over this immigration thing goes away. I equate a lot of immigration things going on today is a repeat of what we had in 1860. I mean, we've drummed people in here, slaves, and for economic reasons of cheap labor, and caused tremendous amount of problems that we're still dealing with today. And why do we want to repeat that process? I think we need to help people become citizens and be able to prosper in this society and assimilate in. And I think, once people assimilate, I mean, we're all mixtures of this, that, and the other, and I think that whole process works so much better. Exactly. And to me, that makes sense from my standpoint, and so that's one of the things that I've put a lot of effort into in our community and trying to assimilate. And I think our citizens are certainly cooperative and supportive of that. They're the ones that's up there teaching the classes and doing the things to help people. So.
On the last note, what is the future economic growth of Farmers Branch? What do you see in the future?
Well, I think it's very positive. We are geographically almost in the center of the metropolitan area of Dallas, and we are seeing great growth. As mayor, I'm privy to a lot of economic development discussions with people coming to us, and we're getting a great increase in people coming in and looking at Farmers Branch as a place to relocate. I think the North Texas area is very positive area in the realm of the United States. We all know the economy's had struggles and things like that, and certain parts of this country are certainly suffering from economic downturns and all the things and the federal government obviously hasn't done a real great job in whether it's what party, whatever, but the results are the same, that we're not having the development and growth that we'd like to see. The lending institutions have held up a lot of the whole process with government regulations being placed on them. But we see this as a very positive area. I'll tell you a little story. I was here a few months ago. A gentleman called me up, and was the CEO of they bill themselves as the largest transporter of cars in the world. And they were a California-based company, and they called and said they were moving to Farmers Branch and wanted to know if I'd have lunch. And I said, no, okay, sure, I'd love to. And they said, they just sit down and they said, we just want to thank you for, we didn't know that there's a place to do business in the world like the North Texas and the Farmers Branch area. They said, you know, they came in, our staff told them, these are the things you got to do. There wasn't any this, that, and that about it.
Yeah.
He said, you know, you had things you wanted us to do, but you were quick to respond to us, and when we did them, you responded back, and we were able to move in and set up our business and get started very rapidly. And they just wanted to thank me because they, you know, they'd come from the West Coast, and they said it was just a tremendous hassle to do business in lots of areas. And we see that every day coming from all over the world. And I think as we try to promote an favorable economic environment here, we're all going to benefit. And you know, we're doing a lot of things today with Addison and Carrollton and other areas where we're trying to combine some of our services where it becomes more efficient to deliver that service at a more economical cost. And so, you know, we cooperate with all of our cities around here and try to present a very favorable environment for the business community. And I think it's starting to pay off. We're seeing some big benefits of that. And a lot of these buildings that you've seen traditionally out along Valley View and areas where in the past they've been vacant, they're all starting to have occupancy now and businesses turning around. And we're looking for probably a lot of development going on that west side. And so we're very positive on what's happening in the community today.
Well, Mayor Bill Glancy, we thank you so much for coming by DFW Business Hour from your busy schedule. I hope it won't be the last time you come visit us.
Oh, well, hope you invite me back. And again, thank you for what you're doing. I think anytime you're getting information out to the community is a positive thing. And so thank you for what you're doing.
You're welcome. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Art Garcia, DFW Business Hour.